Thanks for making the time to check out our poster. My name's Claire Ardern. I'm really pleased to present this work, which is a collaboration between our Vampire team, which is the Vancouver Meta Research Peer Review and Impact of Research Evaluation team, and the Canadian Institutes of Health Research College of Peer Reviewers team. And I'll take the opportunity to acknowledge my colleagues who contributed to this work, Nadia Martino, Sammy Nag and Adrian Mota from the Canadian Institutes of Health Research, and Professor Karim Khan from the University of British Columbia. And what we did for this work was to leverage routine quality assurance monitoring data that CIHR, the Canadian Institutes of Health Research, has been conducting on its peer review processes since 2019. And this is important because research grant funding agencies that are committed to delivering the best quality processes and outcomes that they can, and CHR is one of such organisations, these funders, they have to make decisions that are based on solid evidence when they're implementing policies and procedures that are geared towards delivering fair and inclusive grant peer review. So what we aimed to do was to describe how peer reviewers who are participating in the process for awarding research project grants in the Canadian National Health Research Funding System are performing. The way that peer review is structured in the project grant competitions that CIHR runs is that once or twice a year, about 60 peer review committees that can comprise anywhere up to 20 people, they meet to discuss and reach consensus on which grants should receive funding in that particular funding round. And each of these committees is led by a chair and one or two scientific officers. And this leadership group are responsible for coordinating and managing the whole peer review process, and they also collate and write the feedback that goes back to the grant applicants at the end of the process. These were data that were collected at the end of each peer review committee meeting, and what happened was the chair and the scientific officer completed a standard form that CIHR had developed and pilot tested back in 2017. And the leaders, the peer review committee leaders, the scientific officers and the chairs, they completed a form for every single peer reviewer who had contributed to the committee meeting. And the form assessed 15 different elements across 5 broad domains of performance, future potential, review quality, participation and responsiveness. And over these 4 project grant competitions that were held in 2019, 2020 and 2021, there were over 4,000 peer reviewers who had contributed. And some of these peer reviewers contributed to more than one of the competitions. So ultimately, we have data that describes the performance of about 2,500 unique peer reviewers from assessments that were conducted by 478 peer review committee leaders. And what you're looking at on this slide are the 15 different elements of peer review performance. Let me walk through the data here. In the panel on the left, each of the star plots indicates the proportion of peer reviewers who were rated as yes on the binary review feedback form. And if you're interested in finding out more about that feedback form, jump back one slide in this presentation, scan the QR code, and it will take you to the website where you'll see the instructions and the individual items, 15 different items that each peer review committee leader rated the performance of each peer reviewer on. Now, coming back to these star plots, the 4 points of the star plot corresponds to each of the 4 project grant competitions, and the outer edge of the plots on the left denotes 40%. And what you can see on the left is that approximately 1 in 3 peer reviewers submitted outstanding reviews, or they discussed additional applications to the applications that were originally assigned to them to work on. And 1 in 10 of these peer reviewers demonstrated potential as a future leader of a peer review committee. On the right-hand side, in each of these star plots is constructed in exactly the same way as the star plots that you saw on the left-hand panel. The only difference here on the right is that we're looking at the elements that characterised poor performance, and the outer edge of these plots denotes 6%. So what you can see on the right is that at most 1 in 20 peer reviewers was considered to have not performed adequately with respect to review quality, participation, or responsiveness in this grant peer review process. So ultimately, what we're suggesting is that according to the assessments of the peer review committee leaders, Canadian peer reviewers overwhelmingly performed pretty well. And this was in a process where they were discussing and making decisions on about 8,000 different grant applications, awarding about 1.5 billion Canadian dollars in research funding, in health research funding. Thanks very much.